Hi, guys. Today, I want to talk about the idea that in order to be a successful aerialist and in order to make it, you have to pursue professional performing. So, this was a misconception that I had way back in the day, maybe a couple of years into training aerial seriously. And people kept asking me, "Oh, when are you going to start performing? When are you going to start trying to, be in shows?" And I hadn't really given it a lot of thought. And there was a big part of me that felt like I wasn't good enough anyway. But the more I sort of looked at aerialists I admired on Instagram and thought about it, the more it seemed like if I wanted to make it as an aerialist, I needed to become a performer. So yeah, this was kind of based on talking to my other friends who trained aerial and Instagram, I guess. And I genuinely felt like once I got to a certain level, the logical next step was to see if I enjoyed performing. Because if I could call myself a performer, then I was a real legit aerialist. No one could question that, right? Because I was a performer. And I ended up doing a 1 month intensive in London, so 4 weeks of full-time training, where not only would I learn different apparatus and different skills, but I would learn about act creation and I would learn how to perform. There are a number of different aerial intensives in different circus spaces in London that you can do. The one that I chose was particularly focused on performing. So we had to create an act at the end of every single weeks across the 4 weeks. And in the final week, we had like our final showcase. I performed to a proper song in costume in front of an audience 4 times across the intensive. And for someone who had never performed before in their entire life, that was a lot. It was challenging, it was uncomfortable at times, but I actually really loved it. And I came away from the intensive deeply saddened that I was no longer training full time and thinking to myself, this is the best thing ever. I can't believe that I'm 33, because that's how old I was at the time, and I've just learned how to be a performer, and now I actually have the skill set to start being a performer. So, with this newfound confidence, I decided that that's what I was going to pursue. I was still working full time as a coach, but I decided that I would try and start to get some gigs again to really make sure that this was something that I enjoyed doing. And I was very fortunate because my husband is a professional performer and he works every year with a very fun UK circus that tours around schools putting on shows. And so I had the opportunity to start doing bits of work with them. I did a couple of student showcases as well at my aerial studio because that's obviously a great place to just test out material and practice, but with much less pressure. And then I started getting little gigs here and there. 2023 was the year that I really went for it. And by 2024, I realized I did not want to be a performer. One of the things that I learnt is that as much as performing is an amazing experience, I gained so much from it. I became a more confident person. I am also a much better coach because of it. And I understand how to support performers with coaching in a way that I just wouldn't have been able to if I hadn't been a performer myself. But what I learn is that performing in your 30s, especially if you are doing multiple shows a day, is really, really hard on your body. I am incredibly grateful for the gigs that I have performed in. I want to be super clear that coming into it at the age that I did without a lot of experience, I'm very, very grateful that these people who had been performing for most of their adult life gave me a chance, and I worked very, very hard for them, and it was a wonderful experience. But turning up super early in the morning for a gig, building a tent, which is physical in itself, performing 3 shows, sometimes it was 2 acts because I also performed hand balancing and dragon stuff as well as aerial. then taking the tent down, and then it's late at night, and then you're traveling home. It's a lot on your body. So then if that's your main source of income and you're doing that several times through the week, it just got to a point where I felt like my body couldn't recover. 2024, I did a very busy summer, and by the end of it, I felt so burnt out. It was like even the time off in between gigs wasn't enough to fully recover. And so I definitely feel like if I had started performing in my 20s and I was really, really used to it, I think it would have been a very different experience than starting it in my 30s. Because I'm not saying that when you're in your 30s, you can't be a performer. You absolutely can. I think the older you get, because of the experience, the better you get. But for me, it was such a physical shock to my body, taking on such physical work, that I just made the decision that that wasn't going to be sustainable for me long term. The other thing is that I am an introvert, which you probably wouldn't think from all of the content that I put out and the videos that I make, but the way that I recover and refresh myself is by spending time on my own. And so again, with performing, it's full on, it's go, go, go from the start of the gig to the end of the gig. You're interacting with people, before the shows. And then the shows themselves, you're giving yourself to the audience, right? You're putting so much energy and so much of yourself out into the audience through your performance, which is an amazing thing to do and to experience doing. But that was another thing that I struggled with, was I just felt so depleted in terms of my emotional and mental energy and capacity, as well as being physically tired, that I felt like this wasn't going to be sustainable for me. So I definitely thought that performing was this really amazing, incredible thing that I had to aim for, that I had to try and attain. And I also think that social media really glamorizes it, because as someone who also shared performing content on social media, I didn't share the parts that were really, really hard. I just shared clips from my act. And it's such a glamorous looking type of work, right? You're in these beautiful costumes, you've got this makeup and hair done, and you're in front of an audience doing these incredible tricks. And it looks so much fun. And that the performing itself is, but doing it as a job, it just was so much harder than I anticipated it would be. And I just made the decision that rather than trying to push through and ending up feeling more burnt out, I was gonna put more of my energy into coaching, which I also love. But what a misconception that I thought I had to become a performer to really be a legit aerialist. What I've learned is that the only thing that matters is that you enjoy the aerial practice that you have and that you cultivate for yourself. And that can be through performing and act creation, that can be through coaching, that can be your own training, that can be if you are a hobbyist and you just do it for fun. I no longer care about being an amazing performer. I'm really happy with the work that I did do, especially coming into it in my 30s, but it's no longer what I place my value on as an aerialist. What I place my value on is, am I enjoying my training sessions? Am I showing up and supporting my clients so that they enjoy their training sessions? Because if we don't enjoy what we're doing, what's the point? I realized very quickly that if I continued being a performer, I'd reach a point where I just didn't want to do aerial at all. And so training and what I get from that is actually the thing that truly matters to me. I'm so, so happy with where I am in my aerial now, with how my training is going, with my work as a coach, the way that I'm able to support clients. And I think really, the final point of this message is just to say to anybody else out there, don't feel pressure to become anything with your aerial. You can do what you want. It just has to bring you joy. If you think you need to become a performer, and the only reason you think that is because that's what's gonna, make you feel legit, it won't. Or if you think everyone else is doing it and it looks super glamorous, it doesn't mean you have to follow that too. You can be an incredible aerialist and it can just be a hobby your entire life. And you can still be an absolutely sensational aerialist. You can become a coach if you want to help other people learn the things that make you feel good and that bring you confidence. Or if performing is the thing you love, you can absolutely do that. I just don't think me as a person was suited to it. And then obviously in this scenario, my age did play a role in making it more challenging. So this isn't to say you should do any one thing, but this is to say you do not need to become a performer to be a real aerialist. Your aerial practice is just for you. Make sure you enjoy it and just do the things that you care about. So there's another pep talk for you. I hope this was helpful. If you would like to see more of my videos, please like and subscribe. Thank you.